Hi, my name is Taren King. I'm Director of Product for SMB MediaLabs, Intuit's new media network.
And I'm Jay Altschuler. I'm the SVP of Global Media at Mastercard.
Jay, it's great to speak to you. To start us off, can you tell me a little bit about your role, how long you've been at Mastercard? And then I'm really interested in whatever you can share about the core strategy of Mastercard.
Sure. Yeah, so I've been at Mastercard around 2 years now, a little over 2 years. And, it's been an amazing run so far.
Yeah.
When I was interviewing for the role, the brief that I got, the challenge that I got was, whatever you know about media, take that playbook, rip it up, and build a new one for us. I thought, you know what, that's a pretty incredible brief.
Yeah.
And it really speaks to my true north. I really love to go to companies that are going through transformations and understanding, how I can take data and digital and really think about a new way to go to market and, just reimagine and transform, media as we know it. So this was the perfect brief for me.
It's great to hear about that brief that you had and that vision and carrying it over and what sounds like that's an exciting time to be joining such a well-known brand, obviously. The first thing I want to talk about is brand safety, and it's been brought up so much at Cannes and just in the past year. It's a huge topic. With the rapid advancement of technology, especially deep fakes, how do you grapple from the consumer perspective the challenge of distinguishing between real and fake content in media?
Yeah, just to take a half step back, our go-to-market, I think, may be a little different than, at least my past roles. First of all, we're not a B2C company. We're a B2B2C company, in many ways, even just a pure B2B. And so, first of all, we don't think about necessarily ROI in the same way. Mastercard, our role in marketing is to really figure out how to drive distinction in our brand and to create something unique in the marketplace. We're not a spots and dots advertiser. And so we like to say that, advertising's dead in many ways. We have to create consumer experience. Brand trust with consumer trust in brands is at an all-time low. And so we have to figure out how to create a new paradigm. And that comes back to building that trust, because we are a trust mark in the business. So what underpins that first is, setting internal standards for ourselves. So we have a full brand safety MarTech stack, starting with IAS, and really thinking about, kind of thresholds that we set for ourselves. So we have a 99% brand safety standard that we set for ourselves. And, every day we are constantly thinking about our contextual placements, our inclusion lists, even more importantly than our exclusion lists, and what it means for us to kind of show up in the right places and in the most premium places. And when we feel like we can do that and align to our purpose and our passions, good things happen. And I think that's kind of the first step in how we start to, really engender that trust in how we show up. That along with, kind of creating these new experiences and these priceless experiences for consumers and thinking about how we marry those two.
Very cool, very cool. Right now, consumer trust is at an all-time low. I think that's pretty apparent in this market. What steps is Mastercard taking to uphold this brand responsibility, to maintain transparency, and we touched upon a little bit, but authenticity in communications and operations?
Yeah, it's really near and dear to our hearts to truly be authentic in the way that we communicate. For instance, we have a consumer-facing effort around sustainability, and it's just thinking about how to work with kind of third parties and do reforestation efforts. So we have a program called the Priceless Planet Coalition. We aim to plant 100 million trees around the world. Now, for that to truly be authentic, we have to walk the walk. And so, it's not consumer facing, but, we also hold ourselves to net zero ambitions that, we'll hit net zero by 2040. And so, we believe very deeply, in doing well by doing good. And, that authenticity kind of permeates the company. And, ultimately, we can only have these consumer facing programs if we're authentic and living it ourselves.
So it's all about walking that walk, right? In terms of sustainability, it's such a critical responsibility, and that campaign you mentioned is a piece of it. Can you elaborate more on Mastercard's efforts in carbon mitigation? What is the philosophy you guys have?
Yeah. So again, it all goes back to our promise that we'll be net zero by 2040. So we did a full analysis of all of our Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3 emissions. Because we may be a little different than other companies, because we don't have factories, we don't have widgets that we're outputting. A lot of our carbon is actually coming from marketing.
Oh,
it's coming from our production shoots, and a lot of that comes from travel, and some of that's out of our control. It's kind of the fuel in the airplanes that's a little out of control. But then paid media is another big component of that, and that is primarily driven by our digital paid media. So if you think about where that's coming from, it's usually video and long form videos. We do a lot of social video. We have a relationship with Lionel Messi, for instance, and we can do a wonderful 2-minute video with him that we'll produce with our agency, and it's gorgeous. But it could also be 200 megs, and when you're serving that across the world, the amount of compute power that it takes to do that actually is pretty carbon intense. And so that's what we have to kind of grapple with, is thinking about how we marry this idea of amazing storytelling and effective storytelling that we know drives the brand and drives the business, with our ability to do it in a way that actually reduces our carbon footprint. And that's the journey that we're on.
That's such an innovative way to think about it. Most brands don't think so full picture around the footprint they have, especially as you mentioned with like the cost of video across global media. It's so interesting to think about that in such a blind spot. So I think kudos to Mastercard for really putting an emphasis there.
And we can only do it with full industry collaboration. We've been out and we've been learning and testing, but we partner with the Global Alliance for Responsible Media and Ad Net Zero, and ultimately it requires us as an industry to create standards, to create kind of coalitions that ultimately we're all doing this together. We have to work with the publishers have to work with the MarTech and Ad Tech that's in underneath. And ultimately, we need kind of other marketers like us that are also kind of interested in pushing.
Wow, it takes a village.
Yeah.
Right. A few things left. I did want to touch a little bit about the attention economy.
Yeah.
It's something I hear all over CAD right now, is the fact that consumers are bombarded. I can't remember the number, but it's ridiculous the amount of ads that a consumer sees on a daily basis compared to a decade ago, or even just a few years ago.
Somewhere over 10,000 to 20,000 ads in a day.
I believe it. With this dramatic increase, how does Mastercard navigate this space? It's so oversaturated. Can our brains even handle the amount of ads we see? And how do you stand out from the crowd within this attention economy?
Yeah. And I think that's exactly why we're investing into the attention economy, because we are competing as brands with everything that's out there.
Right.
And it's only exponentially increasing with the tools that consumers have now to easily create content, and content at scale.
Right.
And so, not only do I think as an industry we're competing with kind of fragmentation of audiences and just screens and more screens. I see it with my daughter, who's watching YouTube on the big screen, while she has an iPad and a phone there, and maybe thinking about a second television in the background. And, they are seamlessly navigating, but our brains have a tough time actually, kind of dealing with all this. And kind of the average attention span of a human these days is less than a goldfish. It's less than 8 seconds. And so the hardest thing we have to do as brands now is actually connect, both with the heart and mind of consumers and actually break through. And so, we've spent the past 6 years doing a lot of work with our agency, working with kind of third-party companies like Lumen, to start to do kind of panel tracking and understand not only at a channel level but at a tactic level kind of how we cut through that clutter. And so we've ingested all that data, we've built it into our planning tools. So now instead of just optimizing against reach and frequency, we can optimize against attention metrics like time spent with that ad, like dwell time, but also just overall attentive seconds. And what we realize is that that's a much better brand and business indicator than just reach and frequency or viewability alone. And when we can start to increase the amount of attentive seconds that we have in our campaigns, again, through paid media and these experiences that we're creating that penetrate the culture and get into this cultural zeitgeist and ultimately earn media on top of that, that's how we've found, kind of our sort of magic formula of really, kind of breaking through that clutter.
Wow, that's very proactive. It's such a smart approach. The last topic I have is around brand safety, especially with AI causing so many concerns around authenticity, reputation, content, and there's so much risk involved in there. I'm really curious on how Mastercard is thinking about this and how to approach this in a way that makes sense but gives you all those checks and balances you need for the brand.
Yeah, we view this as all interconnected. So I built a brand responsibility framework, kind of through the lens of kind of changing consumer behavior with media, how tech is affecting not only media, but just really us as consumers and kind of the greater marketing space. So for us, when we can maximize brand responsibility, maximize that brand safety, and again, we have 99% thresholds that we hold ourselves to.
Right.
So maximizing brand safety means that we tend to be in the most premium places that are contextually relevant. Those places happen to be, kind of the tactics and places and spaces where consumers are giving their attention to us as brands, right?
Yeah.
And so, high brand safety thresholds lead to higher brand attention. When you have higher brand attention scores, that media tends to be more effective. You can cut through, which means you actually need less impressions to make that impact. Less impressions means less carbon. And so this is how it's all connected.
It is it's interesting. You don't even think about that. It's like if you can get those messaging moments correctly, then everything else kind of is more efficient in and of itself. It's a very smart approach to it. With that, I think that's it for us. Thank you so much for the time, Jay.
I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for the discussion.
Thank you.